We are going to go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone to our webinar for positive development. My name is Robin Donaldson and I'm the Chief Operations Officer here at Indiana Youth Service Association. Wanted to take care of some housekeeping items before I turn it over to Jean Ann to go through our presentation. We are both at the office, and sometimes our internet connection is not always the best. So I always like to prepare folks for the possibility that we may lose connection, and what will happen will be that you guys all get kicked off. We'll immediately sign back on, and so I would encourage you to do the same thing. Hopefully, that's not going to be an issue, but always want to make sure that folks know what to do in case that does happen. The system automatically mutes you, and that is because we record this. So if you're not muted, you can if you're on the phone, you can do that by hitting *6. And you can, if you're on by computer, you have the little microphone icon, and that will let you mute yourself. But we do record the session, and so if you're muted, that will cut down background noise and make the audio quality better. And lastly, you can unmute yourself to ask questions, or you can use the chat feature to do that. As Jean Ann goes through, I'll keep an eye on the chat feature. If she doesn't see that, I'll make sure that she has the opportunity to answer any questions that are there. And then finally, we will provide certificates of attendance for this. So if you need a certificate of attendance, then please go ahead and email me, and I'm going to type in my email down here so that you have that. And let me know who was. Hey, Devin, can you mute your phone, please? I got some horrible.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that I don't know. Anyway, what I was saying was, thank you, Devin. If you need a certificate of attendance, then please go ahead and just email me and let me know that you need that certificate. If you are with several folks, I only get the person who signed on, so I only get your name. So like Emily did, I see Emily, but she also is there with some other folks, so I would need the first and last name of everyone who is with you today to get that certificate of attendance. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Jean Ann Reich, who is our Director of the Indiana Child Care or Child and Youth Care Certification. So she covers our CYC stuff. And so, Jean Ann, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you, Robin. Well, hi, everybody. Again, my name is Jean Ann, and my name's up on the screen for you. And my long title that I trip over as well, Director of Indiana Child and Youth Care Certification. So today, pretty straightforward agenda. Of course, now my mouse doesn't want to click. There we go. So we'll do a quick overview of positive youth development, a quick introduction to 5 C's, and then an introduction to 12 action steps. And what I've done is I've looked at some action steps that support the outcomes of 5 C's. So that will be most of what we'll do in the presentation today. And then at the end, of course, we'll have a wrap up, plenty of time for Q&A. So just to understand what is positive youth development, the easy answer is that it's all about supporting positive strategies to help youth develop into healthy adults. We want to provide support for this to happen. So I like to think of the analogy of tending a garden. We can help the environment, but the youth is the one that has to do the growing. So we can water, we can prune, but they really bloom on their own. And the research has shown us that we need to focus on the positive of increasing those opportunities for youth to succeed rather than focusing on negative. We used to have things like anti-smoking programs, anti-violence campaigns, and those are good, and we still have those things around, but that's not really where we're going to get a lot of success. So just by providing more of the right kinds of opportunities and making the most of those opportunities, this is going to be the recipe for healthy growth. So again, really focusing on the positive and not worrying so much about limiting the negative. So here, if you're on the screen and you can see, here's a model of the 5 C's of positive youth development. This is from Richard Lerner. You can see here that there are actually 6 C's since one was added later, but the concept is still referred to as 5 C's. If you Google it, you should be able to find it under 5 or 6 C's. And what this does is it provides a framework for understanding positive youth development outcomes, which is what we want to look like when a youth is successful. These outcomes include competence, character, caring, contribution, competence, and connection in this nice, pretty little grid. The other resource that I have today is called Thinking Like a Fox, which is a list of 12 actions or interactions. They were identified by Lorraine Fox. This was taken from the article entitled Using What We Know for Sure to Keep Hope Alive, which was in the summer 2018 Advocate newsletter through the Association of Child and Youth Care Practice, or the ACYCP. It was originally presented as a keynote address at the CYC World Conference last year. I do encourage you to read the article yourself. It is really good, but I'm going to use the action or interaction steps that she's identified to help us apply it to the 5 C's of youth development. So this is what the slides will look like as we go through. I'll have the outcome from Lerner, 5 C's, and then a couple action steps from Fox that were relating to those outcomes, and then afterwards what that outcome is supposed to look like. So for our first outcome, it's connection, and step 1 is relationship matters. And it is actually the thing that matters most. Do you remember who your favorite teacher is? For me, it was Mrs. Carroll, 4th grade. And it's likely that your favorite can because of the relationship that he or she built with you. So we have to remember, youth programs are awesome, but they don't make the difference. It's the people at the youth programs that make the difference. One great example of this is mentoring. It is a relationship. And whatever the activity is, the important thing is doing the activity in relationship. So when you're planning activities to do with youth, think about them as an avenue for relationship. It doesn't matter as much what you're doing. You could be doing dishes or laundry, but doing it together with the youth or alongside of a youth is what makes it significant. So building that connection together with the youth in relationship. Number 2 is give love. So I remember seeing kids and adults from a particular program recently, and the kids were greeting the kids, or sorry, the adults were greeting the kids with hugs and saying, "I love you." And the kids, of course, were happy to have this embrace. As I reflected on this later, I was so glad to see the staff interact this way. But let me have you think about that for a moment. How do you think it made those kids feel? I bet they feel loved and connected to those adults. So think about how you can show love. So we want to do things like showing up without fail, forgiving no matter what, standing by them no matter what happens, with patience and lots of it, with kindness and lots of it, and with lots of praise. So love helps things grow, especially kids. And back to our garden analogy, love is our fertilizer. So those are 2 steps that can help support connection. And our outcome here is a feeling of safety, structure, and belonging, positive bonds with people and social institutions. So our next outcome is caring. Step 3 is about not knowing what to say. The example that comes to mind to me with this is if somebody dies, I always feel like I never know what to say if I'm trying to comfort a friend or coworker. Our hope is to make the person feel better. Our hope is to somehow lessen their hurt, but words cannot always do this. There are going to be times with youth that you don't know what to say, and this is okay. Instead of saying something wrong, just be there for them. You can't be expected to have all the answers, but you can be caring in your actions with your patience and tenderness. Words are not always the answer, and that's okay. So it's all right if you don't know what to say. For number 4, it's listen. It sounds easy, right? But what about when that doesn't match what you expected or what you think should happen? Then it gets harder. One of my favorite examples comes from when my daughter was very young, about 4 years old. It's a food story. I got to tell you, I love food stories. Anyway, so we were traveling and at a mall, decided to go to the food court for lunch, and we ended up at McDonald's. So I asked my daughter, which is what I assume everybody asks their preschooler when you go to McDonald's, do you want cheeseburger or chicken nuggets, right? Which one? She said, I want a salad. And I am a French fry lover, and I was really surprised that she said salad. And so I repeated again. I said, don't you want French fries? Do you want cheeseburger or chicken nuggets? No, I want a salad. So I got her the salad, and she was totally happy, loved it. She is a really good eater, which is great. And so that's one of my favorite stories about that. But with this, I listened to her. And even though it wasn't what I expected or what I wanted, and she was very young, she knew what she wanted, and she told me. And I was glad that I listened to what she wanted and not what I thought it should be or what I wanted or I thought what she should change her mind to. A different example comes from any school or treatment program where adults all meet together to develop the plan for the youth, right? But if the youth is not part of this process, the plan is not really going to work or be very good. A treatment plan should start with listening to the youth. What do they want? What are their needs? What are their goals? Otherwise, all the conferences we have are not going to help unless it starts with them. It may take some patience, but youth will tell you what they want, and you should be ready to listen to it when it happens. So with caring, a youth is going to be able to show sympathy and empathy for others and commitment to social justice. And when we are quiet sometimes, if we don't always know what to say and we listen, we can help them get there. So our next C is confidence. Number 5 interaction is hurting doesn't fix hurting. Control doesn't fix having been controlled. So with our brain, our brain pathways are built through experiences and repetition. This reminds me of when I get angry and I forget to stay calm, I might raise my voice. Well, if I start yelling, then the other person may respond with anger and yelling themselves, and this will not solve the problem. So if kids have been hurt, give them kindness. If kids have been controlled, give them caring. These will help them build confidence. Punishment will not. So if they've been in a tough environment, they don't need more hurt. They don't need more control. We need to give them kindness and caring and love. And that's what's going to help them. So for number 6, there's no manual. One thing I enjoy about watching kids is, especially with siblings, seeing how different they can be, even twins. This is a great example. Back to our garden. If you do all the same things with youth, you don't always get the same outcomes. We may tend our garden in the same way, it gets the same sunlight. We prune it and flowers come out different shapes, different colors, and so forth. There's no manual for working with or raising kids. That's a good thing because every kid is different. We've got to figure out how to meet each one of them where they are. This way, kids are able to build skills and confidence. A sense of self-worth and mastery of having a belief in one's capacity to succeed. Youth will only find this if we give them opportunities to find this. Success is what builds self-esteem, and this is what builds a youth self-esteem to give them opportunities for success. Next, we have character. And number 7 says faster is slower. So we don't want you to get discouraged if you're hoping for a youth to make progress on something and you aren't seeing it go as quickly as you expected. Change really happens over time with lots of patience and lots of mistakes. Think about changes you've tried to make in your own life or goals that you've set but you've had trouble achieving. Things aren't always quick as you'd like them to be. And if progress does seem slow, it doesn't always stick. You might compare this to a job you might rush through. So even something simple like washing dishes. If you're in a hurry and you think I'm going to get this done really quickly, you probably aren't doing that great of a job. Then when you get done, if you have to redo a task because you see that the dishes really aren't clean after all, then it's just taken more time in the long run than if you just had gone slow to begin with. So character happens over time, and so do skills. Another story about my daughter is how she's finally learned to use an alarm clock. She's going off to college next year, and I've struggled with this with her, but she finally got it down. I'm so glad. But even at an age where she was developmentally, she should have been able to handle it. This is just something she was stuck on, and it just took a lot of patience and continued practice on my part. And every kid is different. So you want to expect progress from the youth you work with, even if you don't see it. But know that it may happen slowly, and that's okay. It's better if it happens slowly. You don't want to rush it. So for number 8, we have anger is almost always a cover for grief. You've probably heard the term hangry. It means you're hungry, and that is making you feel and act angry. And you aren't really angry with those around you, but what you need is food. This is the same idea with other needs. If a youth is dealing with a troubling situation or environment, they may not be able to articulate that to us. Let's think about babies. Before they're even able to talk, they can let us know that they need something. How do they do it? By acting fussy, crying, screaming, etc. Or have you ever been in a bad mood? Maybe you aren't sure why. Maybe you've been stomping and kicking and pouting, and eventually you just need a good cry to let it out. Maybe your anger was really tiredness. So don't get caught up in a youth's anger or take it personally. Look beyond it to help them process what's going on. And this will help you take responsibility and have a sense of independence and individuality with a connection to principles and values. So next we're on to competence. Number 9 is to focus on the strengths. So remember in the beginning I said that we want to focus on the positive. This is what helps build confidence. So we want to look for success. If you are a churchgoer, you may have heard your pastor talk about your spiritual gifts. It says we all have different gifts and talents. These are things that we enjoy doing, and so we're better at these things. When you put everybody together, all the jobs should be covered. Now, me, I cannot sing, but somebody else is really good at it, and they really enjoy it. I may like something more like being a welcoming committee, but the singers may not like that at all. The key is to find your particular strengths. One of my favorite examples to talk about this is with entertainers and what they might have been like when they were in school. I wonder if Jim Carrey's math teacher struggled to keep him quiet and pay attention. Now, I really don't know what he was like in math class, but I can see he's great at being silly and entertaining others, and I can imagine there was some shenanigans going on when he was in school. So when I talk to staff about challenging youth, I try to help them see the youth's strengths and focus their energy on building that. Now, an opposite view of this is to think about something like a behavior contract. I had a colleague once who would sometimes create this behavior contract for a kid who was struggling to follow the rules and routine of our program. Now, the few times I saw this in action, it never really benefited the situation. No matter how many chances or strikes the child was given, they always lost in the end. So the language of the contract included things like don't hit, don't use bad language, don't tear up the board games. It was all focused on don't do this or don't do that. This put the focus on watching and waiting to catch the youth doing an inappropriate activity, which of course they eventually did. Instead of focusing on catching a youth doing something bad, we need to focus on catching a youth doing something good. Then continue to build on that. Find out what they're good at, celebrate that, give them opportunities to excel at that. Number 10 is about self-awareness of youth workers is as important as a college education. I was evaluating a program one time and I forgot to check myself for my hot buttons. Everybody has hot buttons or pet peeves, things that get you worked up that other people aren't necessarily as concerned about or doesn't make them worked up. So at this program, I ended up having to record a negative report because of some missing documentation. The program was actually very good. They had a good space, good structure, good staff. They were just a little sloppy with this documentation, which maybe could have just been temporarily lost rather than being completely invalid. And had I approached it differently, I could have warned them about the documentation so they had time to find it. I still feel bad looking back on this. Even though I was trained, I needed to stay in touch with myself to best carry out my training. We all need to know what our hot buttons are. Maybe you have trouble with kids using foul language or sloppy dress. Don't get combative or avoid youth over these issues. Instead, find another approach. And as you work with youth, you can help them identify their hot buttons and find new approaches or ways to handle this as well. So it's important to stay in touch with ourselves, even if we know a lot of things. So competence is the ability to act effectively in school, in social situations, and at work. So now we're up to our last C, which is contribution. Number 11 is laughter heals. Make it a point to laugh with youth whenever you can. Contribute to their laughter and let the youth contribute to yours. I know when I make somebody else laugh, it feels really good for me. Be sure to let your kids make you laugh and help them work through issues with humor. It's good to talk about serious things seriously, but it's also good to find some humor and release some stress over it. Laughter bonds us. Laughter heals our minds. Laughter heals our bodies. So look for laughter. For number 12 is it takes a village. You've probably heard this before. One program, one person can make a significant difference for a youth, but better results can come from a combined approach. As mentors, focus on what you do and do it well. Support others who do other things and help youth get involved in the village through service, working collaboratively with others. We're all stronger together. With contribution, youth have an active participation and leadership in a variety of settings, making a difference. So as we wrap up today, one thing I didn't talk too much about was the 40 developmental assets. This is another tool to help guide positive youth development outcomes. It again is a strength-based approach, not focusing on eliminating the negative, but strengthening the positive. So the more assets a youth has, the less likely they are to get involved in risky behaviors. So we want to help youth build up these assets. And there's more info on developmental assets through the Search Institute. And that brings us to the end of the presentation right now. I hope you enjoyed seeing the 12 actions or interactions in the context of the 5 C's. If you remember nothing else from the presentation, remember to be in a relationship with youth and increase positive opportunities for them. So now we have a lot of time for questions.
Okay, so I'll remind everyone that you are muted. So if you have questions, be sure to unmute yourself. If you're on phone, you can just hit *6 to unmute. If you're on the computer, then you'll have to find that little microphone icon and unmute yourself. But we'll open it up for questions for Jean Ann.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, this is Linda. I got in a little bit late, but I think I have all the 12 listings that you went over, but I'm on number 5. Could you please tell me what number 5 is? Because then I noticed number 9 is confidence, and that's what I had listed for number 5. So I just want to make sure.
Oh, so confidence is one of the 5 C's. So
Okay.
there were 12 steps in context of the 5 or 6 C's.
Okay, and I did get 12 steps, but for some reason, I wrote confidence down for number 5 on experiences and repetition, and with their hurt, show kindness, and if they're being controlled, show caring and love. And then number 9, I showed confidence as find your particular focus on the positive.
Oh,
and,
okay. Competence.
Okay.
Competence.
Oh, competence. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Now that makes a whole lot more sense. Okay. All right.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, other questions? This, what we've done, we are going to, we are recording this, so the recorded link will be available, and we can send that out to all of the participants. Again, I will need your email. I have most of your email, but not necessarily everyone's. So if you want a copy of a certificate of attendance and the link for the recorded webinar, we can send that out. And then if Jean Ann is okay with it, we can send a PDF copy of the presentation as well.
Yes. Yes, and I just put up on the screen too, if anybody's on the screen, the resource links, and we'll include that.
Okay, we get that out. And then Janet says that she liked when Jean Ann said that we might not always know what to say, but being there and caring is what's most important.
Yeah. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? I can't tell if anyone's typing or not. That's what I don't like about this platform. I can't ever tell. Okay. Well, if you do have additional questions or comments, you can feel free to email me or Jean Ann. And it's our first initial last name at nds as in Sam, B as in boy.org. We will go ahead and end the session for today. Again, if you want a certificate of attendance, email me, and we will get that out to you. I want to say thank you very much to Jean Ann for going through our 5 C's, even though there are 6, and tying in the Think Like a Fox. Hopefully everyone found this helpful, and just say thank you to everybody again, and stay warm.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks.